Narcissistic sister kicked me out. Now our parents are losing their home and begging for help while still defending her. Hey everyone, Erin here. I'm a graphic designer based out of Seattle, living a life that's mine, and only mine, a reality I carved out with no small amount of struggle. You see, my path to independence wasn't by choice, but by necessity, shaped by family dynamics that pushed me to the edges of my own narrative. Let me take you back a bit. Growing up, my family life seemed pretty standard from the outside, but inside, it was a different story. I have a sister, Mia, 3 years my junior. From the day she was born, Mia was the sun in our family's solar system, with everything else, including me, merely orbiting her. My parents, whether consciously or not, have always had a soft spot for Mia, overlooking her flaws while spotlighting mine. Mia, for all her charms, was reckless. She shifted from one bad decision to the next, with the kind of ease that only comes from knowing you have a safety net ready to catch you. Her reckless spending, irresponsible behavior, and constant need for attention dominated our family's resources and emotional bandwidth. Meanwhile, I learned early on that my role was the responsible one, the planner, the one who had to think about consequences, because it seemed no one else would. The breaking point came when I was 22. Mia spun a story to my parents, painting me as the antagonist in a particularly twisted episode of her drama. It was all lies, but her tears were convincing enough for my parents to take her side without question. The result? I was asked to leave, just like that. Being kicked out of your own home by the people who are supposed to protect you changes something inside you. It forced me into an independence I wasn't ready for, but one I embraced fully out of necessity. I've spent the last 6 years building a life of my own, a life free from the constant chaos of Mia's making and the disappointment of my parents' bias. It's been hard and lonely at times, but it has also been liberating. I found strength I never knew I had and learned that sometimes you have to be your own hero when no one else will stand up for you. So here I am, a self-made woman, staying afloat in the choppy waters of life, steering my own ship after years of being an afterthought in someone else's journey. My story isn't unique, but it's mine, and it's not over yet. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when my phone rang, breaking the steady rhythm of my keyboard taps as I wrapped up a client project. Glancing at the caller ID, I hesitated. It was Mom and Dad, a rarity since our communications had dwindled to awkward holiday greetings and the occasional superficial check-in. Steeling myself for another uncomfortable conversation, I answered. "Erin, thank goodness," my mom's voice came through, threaded with a tension that immediately put me on edge. "We need your help." "What's going on?" I asked, my voice steady despite the sudden knot in my stomach. "It's about the house," Dad chimed in, his tone grave. "We're on the verge of losing it. We've gotten behind on payments and—" My heart sank. "How did things get this bad?" I interrupted, although part of me already suspected the answer. "It's been a series of unfortunate events, really," Mom explained, her voice shaking slightly. "And, well, some of Mia's business ventures didn't turn out as planned. You know how tough the economy is." I clenched my jaw, frustration mounting. This wasn't just bad luck or the economy. This was Mia's doing, her endless cycle of reckless decisions that somehow always fell on my parents to rectify. Yet, here they were, dancing around her responsibility like they always did. "We were hoping you could lend us some money to get back on track," Dad said. "Just until we sort things out." The request hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Lend them money to fix problems they wouldn't even admit were caused by Mia? It felt like all those years ago, being invisible, my needs and the truth brushed aside to keep the peace at my expense. I need to think about this," I managed to say, my voice tight with emotion. "I mean, has Mia offered to help out? It's her mess, isn't it?" There was a pause, a silence that spoke volumes. "We can't expect her to fix everything. She's trying her best," Mom finally said, a note of defensiveness creeping into her tone. "Trying her best?" I echoed, incredulous. The familiar anger and helplessness surged through me, the echo of being ousted from my home because of Mia's lies rearing its ugly head. "I'll need some time to think about this," I repeated, more firmly this time. "We understand, but please, Erin, we're family. We need to stick together," Dad added before we said our goodbyes. Hanging up, I was left staring at the rain streaking down the window pane, a mirror to the turmoil inside me. My parents' refusal to see Mia's role in their financial ruin was like a reopened wound, painful and infuriating. I knew helping them could mean never seeing that money again, dragged into the cycle of enabling that had defined my relationship with my family for too long. As I turned back to my computer, the screen's glow did nothing to ward off the chill that had settled over me. This was more than a financial decision. It was a moral one. Could I support my parents when they continued to support the chaos Mia brought into their lives? Could I stand by and watch them lose everything? These were questions with no easy answers, and as the rain continued to fall, so too did my resolve begin to waver. A few days after the call, with my thoughts churning like storm clouds, I decided to confront the situation head-on. I arranged a video call with my parents and, to my surprise, found Mia sitting alongside them when the screen lit up. Their expressions were a mix of anxiety and false cheerfulness. "Erin, we're so glad you could join us," Mom started, her voice overly bright. "We've been thinking about what you said, and we really need your help." Taking a deep breath, I centered myself for the conversation I knew had to happen. "I've thought about it too," I began, "and I need to be clear about something. I'm willing to help, but we need to address the elephant in the room, Mia's spending, and the impact of her decisions on your finances." Dad's face tightened. "Erin, now's not the time to point fingers." "It's exactly the time," I interrupted, my tone firm. "This isn't just about money. It's about acknowledging the patterns that led here. Mia, you've made some big mistakes, and they're not just your mistakes anymore. They're affecting Mom and Dad's future." Mia's eyes flashed with indignation. "So, this is what you think of me? You think I don't know I've messed up? But you abandoning us when we need you, how is that better?" Her words stung, and for a moment, old guilt tugged at me. But I shook it off, remembering the many times I'd silently suffered for the sake of family harmony. "I'm not abandoning you," I countered, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I'm asking you to take responsibility, not just with words, but with actions. Mom, Dad, you can't keep wiping away her mistakes without consequences." Mom looked between Mia and me, torn. "We're your family, Erin. Isn't that worth more than—" "It is," I cut in, "which is why I'm doing this. If I just give you the money and we all pretend everything's fine, we'll be in the same spot down the line. Mia needs to learn. You need to stop enabling her, and I need to know my help isn't just enabling more denial." The conversation grew heated as old grievances resurfaced, with Mom and Dad defending Mia, citing her recent small efforts as proof of change. Mia, feeling cornered, alternated between self-pity and anger, accusing me of being heartless and holding grudges. "Helping without accountability isn't help. It's just prolonging the problem," I said finally, my voice thick with emotion. "I love you all, but I can't do this unless we all acknowledge the full scope of what's happening." The call ended with no resolution, the screen going dark and leaving me to sit in the heavy silence of my apartment. I felt a hollow ache for the family unity I craved, but knew was marred by dysfunction and denial. As I mulled over the painful exchange, I knew that standing firm might mean risking further estrangement. Yet, in demanding accountability, I was not just trying to protect their financial stability, but also my integrity and our family's future. This was the hardest stand I'd ever taken, but perhaps the most necessary. As I sat in the quiet aftermath of our contentious video call, the echoes of past conflicts played through my mind like a melancholic symphony. Each memory, vivid and painful, served as a stark reminder of the long-standing imbalance in my family's dynamics. It wasn't just about money or the present crisis. It was about years of preferential treatment and the scars it left. The first incident happened during my senior year of college. I had worked part-time to afford a modest, used car, a necessity for my internships and class commutes. One weekend, I came home to find my car missing. Hours later, Mia sheepishly admitted she had taken it without asking and crashed it. The front end was badly damaged, and the repair costs were steep. My parents' solution? They chastised me for being upset and bought Mia a new car to ensure she could get around safely. I was left to drain my savings to fix my own vehicle. The message was clear. Mia's needs came first, regardless of her responsibility for the situation. Not long after the car incident, Mia embarked on what she claimed would be a groundbreaking entrepreneurial venture. It failed spectacularly within months, leaving her tens of thousands in debt. When the collectors started calling, my parents panicked and dipped into the college fund they had set aside for me, using nearly all of it to clear Mia's debts. They promised they would repay it before my final year tuition was due. That promise was never fulfilled, and I had to scramble for loans and scholarships at the last minute. Once again, Mia's mistakes were absorbed by the family, specifically by sacrifices demanded of me. The most painful betrayal came when Mia developed a drug problem. I discovered it accidentally and confronted her, hoping we could find help together. Instead, Mia panicked and told our parents a convoluted story about the drugs being mine. Desperate to hide the truth from our community, my parents believed, or chose to believe, her story. I was given an ultimatum: leave the house to keep Mia safe from bad influences. I was shocked, heartbroken. It was the ultimate sacrifice, losing my place in my family to cover up Mia's issues. Reflecting on these incidents, the pattern was undeniable. Each event reinforced the notion that Mia could do no wrong, or rather, that no wrong of hers would ever be allowed to disrupt her path. My role was the buffer, the shock absorber for the family's dysfunction. As I revisited these memories, I felt a mix of anger and sorrow, but there was also a burgeoning resolve. These reflections solidified my decision. This time, I had to stand firm. If I didn't insist on change now, the cycle would never break. They needed to see Mia's behavior for what it was, not just youthful indiscretion or bad luck, but a pattern of behavior that had cost us all dearly, in more ways than one. A week had passed since our last turbulent conversation. Armed with resolve and a clear understanding of the cycles that had dominated my family dynamics, I called my parents to address the unresolved issues and set the terms for my involvement in resolving the crisis. "Mom, Dad, we need to have a serious discussion," I began, my voice steady but unmistakable in its seriousness. "I've given a lot of thought to our situation, and I can't proceed without some changes. Mia needs professional help for her spending and whatever underlying issues are driving her behavior. It's not just for her sake, but for the health of our entire family." My parents exchanged a look, their faces a mix of apprehension and resignation. Dad was the first to speak, his voice weary. "Erin, we understand your concerns, but we're in a tight spot right now. We really can't afford to wait." "I know you're in a bind, and I'm not unsympathetic to that," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But my help comes with conditions this time. It's not just about the money, it's about finally addressing the root of these problems. If Mia doesn't get professional help, I'm stepping back for good. This pattern needs to end." There was a long pause, the weight of my ultimatum hanging heavily between us. Mom's voice trembled as she finally spoke. "Erin, we'll talk to Mia about getting counseling. We'll try to make her see the need for it. And," I pressed on, knowing this was perhaps the most crucial part, "I need to see a commitment from all of you. That means setting up an appointment with a therapist, and Mia taking real, tangible steps towards change." Dad nodded slowly, his expression somber. "We'll do it. We'll make sure she starts seeing someone. But Erin, we really can't lose the house. We need your help now, while we sort this out with Mia." I paused, the decision heavy on my shoulders. After a deep breath, I responded, "Okay, here's what I can do. I'll help with the immediate financial crisis to prevent you from losing your home. But this is a loan, not a gift. I'll need to see proof of Mia's counseling, and we'll need to have regular updates on her progress. And if Mia doesn't follow through, or if you don't take this seriously," I added, my voice firmer, "this will be the last time I step in. We need to be clear about that." "Understood," Mom said, a note of finality in her voice that suggested she too realized the gravity of the situation. We ended the call with a plan in place, but the resolution was far from comforting. I felt the familiar sting of old wounds, knowing that while I may have set a path forward, the journey would be fraught with challenges. Yet, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance that this might be the turning point for all of us. For the first time, I felt a cautious optimism, tempered with the reality of my family's history. It was a step, albeit a small one, towards breaking the cycle and perhaps mending the fractures that had long divided us. After setting the conditions with my parents, I followed through with my commitment. I provided the necessary funds to stave off the immediate financial crisis threatening to take their home. It was a significant amount, and I made sure to formalize the arrangement, emphasizing that this was a loan, not a gift, and it was contingent upon the family, including Mia, attending counseling sessions together. The following weeks were a tense period of waiting and watching. My parents arranged the first few family therapy sessions, and initially, it seemed like there might be a breakthrough. Mia attended, albeit reluctantly, and there was a glimmer of hope when she participated without outward resistance. I allowed myself a cautious optimism, encouraged by my parents' updates that suggested a willingness to finally address the underlying issues. However, old habits die hard, and Mia's initial compliance slowly peeled away to reveal the familiar patterns of avoidance and denial. It started with missed appointments, which she dismissed as scheduling conflicts, and escalated to dismissive attitudes during the sessions she did attend. Her commitment was superficial, and it wasn't long before she reverted to her old ways, rationalizing her spending sprees and deflecting any responsibility for her actions. This regression was disheartening, but not surprising. My skepticism, born out of years of similar cycles, seemed justified as every step forward was matched with 2 steps back. My parents, ever hopeful, tried to mediate and make excuses for Mia's lapses, but the pattern was too entrenched to deny. I kept a close watch on the situation, maintaining firm boundaries. I reminded my parents of our agreement. The financial help I had extended was not only contingent on Mia's progress, but also on their commitment to the process of healing our family dynamics. When it became apparent that Mia was not making genuine efforts to change, I had a difficult conversation with my parents. "I love you both, and this decision doesn't change that," I told them during a particularly hard phone call. "But I can't continue to put myself in this position. We agreed on certain conditions, and it's clear those aren't being met." The disappointment in their voices was palpable, yet there was also a sense of resignation, a recognition of the reality I had long accepted. They agreed to continue the counseling without my financial assistance, a decision that I hoped would lead to some genuine change, albeit at a slower pace. As for me, pulling back was necessary, a way to preserve my own mental and financial well-being. This situation reiterated a painful truth. While I could offer support, I couldn't force change. My involvement had to have its limits, and with Mia's relapse into old behaviors, it was time for me to step back. In the end, the decision to distance myself again was both liberating and heartbreaking. It reinforced my belief that sometimes, loving from a distance is the only way to maintain one's peace and principles. As I focused on my life and career, free from the immediate stress of my family's dynamics, I found a renewed sense of self and a clearer understanding of what I could and could not control. It was a hard-earned peace, one shaped by difficult choices and the acceptance that some battles, no matter how deeply personal, are not mine to win alone. As I sit in the quiet comfort of my studio, surrounded by the tools of my trade and the artwork that fuels my soul, I find myself reflecting on the turbulent journey with my family. It's been a road marked by hope, disappointment, and the ultimate acceptance of things I cannot change. The decision to step back from my family was one of the hardest I've ever had to make, but it was necessary for my own well-being. The realization that my family may never change, that the dynamics which have long governed our interactions might never evolve, was a bitter pill to swallow. Yet, it was also a catalyst for a profound personal growth. Over time, I've learned that the space I've placed between us is not just physical, but emotional and financial, a boundary necessary to protect my own mental health and future stability. This distance has allowed me to break the cycle of reactive involvement and constant disappointment. It's given me the clarity to focus on my own life, to nurture my career, and to cultivate relationships that are healthy and reciprocal. I've come to understand that while I can love my family, I do not have to save them or sacrifice myself trying. Closing this chapter of my life in the narrative of estrangement and conflict, I am writing a new one of autonomy and contentment. I share my journey not out of bitterness, but as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It's a reminder that sometimes, loving from a distance is the only way to preserve one's sanity and happiness. It's a hard lesson in the limitations of love and the expansive power of self-preservation. To anyone reading this who finds themselves in a similar situation, know that it's okay to choose yourself. It's okay to say no, to set limits, to demand respect, and to walk away if those conditions are not met. It's not an act of selfishness, but of self-respect. As I look forward, I am optimistic. My journey of personal growth and acceptance continues, each day bringing new challenges and opportunities for learning. I have found peace in knowing I have done all I could, and now I must let go and trust in the path I have chosen for myself. Here, in the tranquility of my chosen solitude, I find strength, and above all, I find freedom.